See this power in action, so let's go ahead and get started with this matchup between Federico Turano and Juan Vesga. We are going to see a lot of these Pokemon hopefully on the field, but let's start out with the leads here, where it is going to be that Tapu Fini and that Cresselia that we were talking about as a really big powerful duo versus the Kartana and the Urshifu. Now, this is really interesting because I feel like Federico is really bringing like a hyper offensive lead, whereas Juan, on the other hand, seems to be more on the defensive side of things.
You've got two Pokemon on Federico's side that are known for one thing and one thing only. That is dealing huge amounts of damage. I mean, just great coverage available on the Kartana there. Certainly going to be able to put the pressure down. And the Urshifu follows up with nothing but damage. I mean, its whole ability is about avoiding protects and continuing to put damage down. So, as you mentioned, a really offensive lead. What's curious about Juan's side here is, you know what? Both these Pokemon often fill a very kind of similar role on a team in being very defensive and maybe setting up pivots and taking damage and setting up for a little bit more. So I think the pressure is really going to be on Juan here to get as much out of these Pokemon as he can and go from there and see what he can carve out as an advantage. Even though it's a more defensive-minded Pokemon in a number of instances, the Tapu Fini is still putting enough pressure on Urshifu for it to switch out.
Right, especially if you're packing something like a Moonblast. That's definitely something that Urshifu is not going to want to take. So we will see that switch out, and we will see another Pokemon come in with that Togekiss. But already, Juan's putting the pedal to the metal here. It is going to be that Tapu Fini Dynamaxing super early, and without something like a Calm Mind boost to boot.
He's just going for it. He's just saying, you know what, Tapu Fini isn't the defensive option. I've got the defensive option in Cresselia, and to deal with that, I'm just going to Dynamax my Tapu Fini and land a whole lot of damage. In this case, it's a Max Starfall, very nicely put down there onto the Togekiss. It would have been better if it was an Urshifu, but you can't win them all. And the Trick Room gets set up from the Cresselia, so one of its key kind of strengths is being able to put that damage down. And Kartana, even in the Trick Room, looks like it may still be trying to find those big knockouts and start the game snowballing with the Beast Boost.
Yeah, I am really curious about whether or not that Leaf Blade is going to be enough to be able to knock out that Tapu Fini. We'll have to kind of wait and find out as this turn does go forward, but it's time to match some of that pressure that Juan has put out so early on in this game with that Dynamax Tapu Fini, and we will see Federico Dynamax that Kartana. Let's see whether or not that Beast Boost can happen.
If you can get the Beast Boosts and safely get attacks off, then he's going to be in a really good position to use this Kartana to the max. Of course, it's going to be a little bit harder to do that when the damage is coming back. The helping hand really key here, and Togekiss playing it safe. This targeting is going to be really important for Juan. If he gets this right, he could be in a really good position.
Well, Max Starfall first, going back into the Togekiss slot, even though Togekiss did protect itself, and Kartana now goes for the Max Overgrowth here into the Tapu Fini. And this is where we find out how much damage exactly this is going to do. It's not quite enough to get the knockout.
Big damage, but as you mentioned, not enough. And it's still a good turn, I think. Federico, yes, he didn't get the knockout, but he gets control of the terrain. He brings the Tapu Fini very low, enough to activate its berry. It's Citrus Berry, so not that low, but still in a good position. Of course, we're going to have to do a little round of recovery here as well. But most importantly for Federico, the Togekiss didn't get knocked out. The Togekiss was able to stick around, and that bigger commitment to dealing with Togekiss and not getting the result you wanted is very disappointing when you're now into your final Dynamax turn.
Right, and now you have the ability for Togekiss to go for something like maybe a Yawn here, maybe more of those supportive moves. I think Protect is one of those moves that is so important to have on a Togekiss, just because, as you saw right there, able to stall out some of these really important turns of Dynamax, especially as yet another bulky supportive Pokemon that we've seen a lot of in this format. So it's nice to be able to see that on Federico's team and being able to do so much help to it.
It's going to be key, I think, if he wants to win this one, to be able to make sure his Togekiss is always in a position to take big hits and just kind of apply that pressure. And with that in mind, he knows it can't take a Helping Hand Moonblast if that's what's going to be following up, and decides it's time for Glastrier.
Well, let's switch first. So Cresselia and Tapu Fini are going to switch places on the field, which might keep Tapu Fini that much safer as a Max Starfall finds its way into the Glastrier, which is going to do a decent amount of damage, but I think that the cool thing about this is that it does change the terrain just a little bit longer, as Kartana gonna change it right back with that max overgrowth here. And because of that ally switch, will find its mark into the Cresselia, not the Tapu Fini, and not securing that knockout.
Even with a critical hit, that's not enough to deal with Cresselia. Just so bulky and so cumbersome to try and deal with. And that's going to be the end of Tapu Fini's Dynamax there. No knockouts secured. And it, with one more turn, the kind of pressure's on Kartana to secure a knockout and get good value. The Glastrier switch in there, very good. Able to take that Max Starfall very comfortably. With a little bit of recovery, doesn't look too shabby at all. Just below 3/4 of its health remaining. So still plenty to work through there. And if Trick Room's up, Glastrier is going to be in a position to try and capitalize. Could be interesting to see, Glastrier just knock something out. Maybe try and grab the Cresselia and then let the Tapu Fini get caught by an overgrowth and just get at least one Beast Boost there. As we have to remember, there is of course Trick Room turns ticking down, and if the Kartana's still full health at the end of those with a Beast Boost or two, it would just be able to sweep the game.
Right, those Beast Boosts are going to be so important for this Kartana to capture, but twice that Kartana has been denied of that Beast Boost thanks to the bulk of the Tapu Fini as well as the ally switch, and Juan trying to preserve this Tapu Fini again, maybe expecting yet another max overgrowth to come into that slot. So Rotom Heat now taking the field and maybe taking a brunt of this damage, but here comes the Icicle Crash. It will find its mark into the Cresselia, dealing that last bit of damage, but this is where we also see some snowball pressure come through, with that Chilling Neigh activating for this Glastrier and raising its attack stat by 1.
Yep, this Glastrier is going to be feeling pretty good about how much damage it can do next turn. Kartana's max overgrowth not going to be great value into the Rotom, and the Rotom kind of has to just buy time here and try and hope that it can function without getting caught by this Glastrier. I think after the Chilling Neigh boost, it's going to be real hard to withstand an attack, even though the max overgrowth doesn't get the knockout. It does do a good chunk of damage.
Ooh, but this is scary here. Look at this. Tyranitar is going to be the final Pokemon for Juan. And this is, a great position for the Glastrier and the Kartana to be in. That Tyranitar is looking like a pretty fine target.
Yeah, this Tyranitar going to cause some problems for sure. If it can get to attack, and I don't know if it's going to be given those options.
Yeah, we're seeing that, already this Kartana is going to try to target down the Tyranitar, and even though you do have the Sandstream up, it doesn't really help you against the physical damage that's going to be coming out from that Kartana as well as this Glastrier. So maybe Federico kind of second-guessing what they want to do in this situation. Is Tyranitar going to protect here, or is this damage going to be able to get off?
I don't think Federico wants to waste the, any remaining Trick Room that he's been gifted by Juan here. I think he just wants to make sure that his attacks all land perfectly, and he's going to be in a good position to swing this game around in his favor as soon as the Trick Room is over. That said, the close combat, heading towards that Rotom, not where you want it to go.
No, that's going to allow Tyranitar to fire back with a superpower, but Glastrier hangs on from that.
Yeah, Glastrier not getting knocked out there is going to be really problematic, and it was fighting type moves for both of them. Tyranitar doesn't appreciate either of them, and Sacred Sword finally gonna net Kartana that Beast Boost it's been craving all game.
Yeah, now both of the Pokemon for Federico's side do have that increased damage, and Glastrier gets really low from the chip damage from Sand, but that is going to be it for game number 1. Let's get into that game number 2 and see whether or not Juan does make that adaptation to be able to dish out a little bit more damage earlier on into the game. We are seeing Juan now this time around, yes, leading with the Cresselia again, but this time changing it up a little bit and bringing that Landorus to the field, whereas on the opposite side of things for Federico, it's going to be the same tried and true. Let's take a look at that Kartana and Urshifu hitting the field for Federico, which are both going to be taking an Intimidate drop from that Landorus.
Much better lead, I think, from Juan in this one. He's got kind of a more offensive answer to the Kartana and Urshifu in this one with his Landorus and being able to say, I can at least apply pressure back. And, as you mentioned, he managed to get the Intimidate down really nicely. And that's going to be huge in helping out, at least withstand some of the pressure a little bit here. So this Landorus could put in an absolute shift if it's given the opportunity to. It looks like Federico's a little bit scared of it, and rightfully so. I mean, it's a huge threat if it lands big attacks. It looks like Juan is going to be committing to making sure that it does as much work as possible.
Yeah, I feel like this is a really smart adaptation though from Juan. Like Adam, you already mentioned that Juan wasn't necessarily able to put on the pressure enough. Like that Tapu Fini just kind of wasn't doing the job there. And then, you know, you kind of have to also take a look at things and go, well, how am I supposed to get the damage off this time around? So I love this super, super offensive lead from Juan, bringing in the Landorus and then also going ahead and using Ally Switch here to hopefully keep that Landorus safe as here comes the Leaf Blade, and that's definitely not doing enough to knock out Cresselia anytime soon.
Yeah, this Ally Switch looks like it could be absolutely huge, with the Cresselia taking both the Leaf Blade and the Surging Strikes. I mean, it's taking little chunks every single time, but that's not going to be as bad as it would have been if that had landed into the Landorus. Cresselia just below half health, and the Landorus is now free to fire back as it pleases. This time it's going to be max airstream into the Urshifu, so a huge amount of damage, obviously bringing it down to its Focus Sash. But this is kind of the power of the Landorus, right? It used to rely on a Choice Scarf for speed. Now, guess what? It's got the option to do that while dealing huge damage as well.
Right, the max airstream boost is going to be so beneficial for one side of the field, just to be able to allow Landorus to now outspeed the opposing competition. And this might mean that Urshifu just doesn't get a chance to fire up another attack.
Yeah, if the Urshifu gets taken out here, that's a huge amount of damage potential from Federico's side. Looks like it could be taken away there, so it may have to switch it out, save it for later when he's got a little more room to try and work in some of these attacks. And Urshifu doesn't want to play with that anymore, doesn't want to get caught by any rogue attack and get knocked out.
No, and Cresselia also doesn't really want to stick around on the field either. It is in a, precarious position thanks to, the Ally Switch and then taking both that Leaf Blade as well as that Surging Strikes. But Togekiss takes a lot of damage here too on the income, but I really feel that that switch was important from Juan, bringing out the Cresselia so that Kartana didn't have the opportunity to get that Beast Boost.
That's big. This Leaf Blade's going to be really negligible on the Rotom as well. So really smart switching here by Juan every single time, either switching his position on the field with the combination of with Ally Switch, or just switching out the old-fashioned way where you just bring in a Pokemon from the back and put yourself in a really good kind of position. Through that way, the Kartana not only wasn't able to do much damage there, it's now facing down a Rotom Heat, a Pokemon it really does not enjoy.
No, it does not. Rotom Heat has many ways to be able to hit that Kartana for super effective damage, so I don't know if this Kartana is really going to want to stick around too much longer. This Kartana is holding an Assault Vest, so it does not have access to that protective move to be able to keep it safe in the face of this Rotom Heat. So I like that we're seeing Colossal switch in here now for this Kartana.
Yeah, this Colossal, though, I mean, we saw it obviously in Players' Cup 1. It was a fantastic selection there. But this really isn't the position it wants to be in. It usually wants to, get itself set up and do a little bit more. And it looks like now it's just being used as an option to switch and see what it can do. The speed boosts keep on coming. That's now 2 on the Rotom and 3 landing on this Landorus. So this Landorus is going to be absolutely rapid when it comes to potentially closing up this game and, to help its speed boost to go along with them as a nice complement. A nasty plot for the Rotom. This could get very problematic in the next couple turns, where basically this pairing on the field are very, very fast and very, very powerful too.
Yeah, well, especially when you take a look at Federico's Urshifu kind of being the only thing right now that will be able to hit that Rotom for that super effective damage with the Surging Strikes or the Aqua Jet. And something else I feel like that's super important to note is that this Rotom is going to be able to move faster. So you got to kind of take a look at that as Federico and go, how do I maneuver around the situation now? Really in a pinch here.
The thing is there's a whole lot of ways to just damage this Colossal. There is a vast amount of investment over on this side of the field. So yes, Urshifu could activate the combination weakness policy Steam Engine, but will it be allowed to do that? It's going to be a bit of an ask, and that's certainly something that I'm interested to see exactly how this one plays out. I mean, both the Pokemon are threatening over on one side of the field, and as soon as Colossal Dynamaxes, it's only able to deal with one at a time, which is, I think it's fair, but it's also a bit of a downfall. You're like, well, do I just want to save so my Kartana can wrap up the game here, and then I have to go for the Rotom? Well, if you go for the Rotom, then you're just leaving this Landorus on the field to do kind of whatever it pleases. which is certainly not fun for anyone involved.
Oh no. Well, it is going to be time for the Colossal to take that Gigantamax factor and will be Gigantamaxing on the field. As we saw from the Urshifu, Urshifu is going to use Aqua Jet to be able to not only use that Steam Engine boost for Colossal, but also be able to pop that weakness policy that Colossal has been holding on to. So this must mean that this Colossal will be able to fire off a big attack, but Landorus is faster. The Earthquake is happening first.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter. Even the Steam Engine,
Wow.
After the 3 boosts from Max Airstream early on, does mean this Colossal is not even afforded the bare minimum chance to move. It was just too late to bring that Colossal in, and it's going to go down alongside the Urshifu as well. Maybe a little bit telegraphed there from Federico, and Juan just goes, yeah, I know exactly what you were trying to do here, and I'm just gonna not let you do it. I have enough speed boosts to see through this Steam Engine.
Yeah, what an incredible adaptation from Juan, being able to bring in that Landorus, and Dynamaxing it so early with those speed boosts has been making it such a big threat and such a big problem for Federico to deal with. Even in this position now, Rotom Heat should be able to pack a really big punch with that Nasty Plot boost that it got just a little bit ago, and with the speed boost that it has had from the Landorus.
I'll give credit to Federico. What I've just seen him hovering in the menu is a big play if he can land it, but it looks like he knows he's up against it. I think going back to that previous turn, something that is quite important to note is there really wasn't anything coming out. As soon as you lose the Colossal there, it means the Urshifu got absolutely nothing done in that turn, and maybe that was more important, but with the speed boost from that Max Airstream, this Kartana's not even going to be able to do anything. It's just not going to be enough, and a much different game to game number 1 as Juan Vesga just turns it around. And
Well, the only way to find out how this series ends is by jumping into game number 3. We'll see who ends up winning this series between Federico Turano and Juan Vesga, as we do see these leads now come out onto the field, and it worked before. So might as well try to run it again, and it is going to be that Landorus and Cresselia as a lead, where we will see Federico bring out that Kartana and that Urshifu again, just to get Intimidate dropped again.
The Urshifu's been a little underwhelming in this set, I must say. It's really not done as much, mainly because some of the targeting's been not where it wanted to be thanks to Ally Switch. But it's just not looked like an absolute master. It's looked a little bit foolish at times, and bringing it back into the Intimidate, not ideal here for Federico.
No, it really isn't. And so kind of wonder, how is Federico really going to be able to deal with this, as Juan's putting the pressure on again. Very similar to game number 2, is just going to be maxing Landorus right away here to be able to start getting off those boosts, or just dish out huge damage.
The Max Airstream boost was so good for him in game number 2, so no reason for him not to go back to it. We do kind of have to look at the Ally Switch mind game potentially here, and it does look like that's going to be a factor as Max Guard sneaks in here from the Landorus. So yes, 2 attacks are going to head its way. They're not going to miss, they're just going to land in a Max Guard this turn. It'll be up to Cresselia to show what it can do. A Trick Room, certainly different, so doesn't have to max Airstream this game, can play around things a little bit differently.
That is a very interesting adaptation now, and I feel like Juan played that so beautifully, recognizing, hey, I don't necessarily need to outspeed you, but let's see what we can do in Trick Room. We can see, though, that Federico did decide to leave the Colossal at home in favor of that Glastrier that you were talking about as that potential switch and adaptation necessary for this game. But is it gonna be comfortable coming in here yet? I don't think that answer is yes.
Not right now. I think maybe a little bit later on it could be the way to go. As Cresselia Ice Beam into the Togekiss. Oh, that's a really good call on the switch in.
It really is, as Landorus goes for the Max Airstream anyway, right into the Togekiss, and Togekiss barely able to hang on.
Yeah, Togekiss, both times it's switched in, has taken a bit of a beating in combination attacks. Obviously boosting your speed in a Trick Room is not the most optimal of moves, and not something everyone wants to do, but getting the damage down is clearly a trade-off that Juan is very comfortable with.
Well, let's see what Federico decides to do now. Togekiss is already so low. Yes, it could go for a follow me here and be able to maybe take away one of the turns of max, but this is still a very precarious position for this Kartana to be in. And ooh, okay, this is something I really wanted to get a chance to talk about, and that's that guillotine attack on Kartana. Is it going to be able to work? This feels like a last-ditch effort from Federico.
He hovered it in the end of game number 1, and it doesn't connect on the Cresselia. So a lot going in to dealing with that Cresselia, that turn, a Yawn and a guillotine. Not able to really get an immediate bit of value out of either of them, as Landorus just keeps boosting its speed in the Trick Room.
Well, wow. It's very, very interesting here to see that Kartana go for the guillotine, but it's time to reverse that Trick Room now that the job has been done. And we will see Cresselia go for Trick Room just to reverse it back, as let's see what comes out next from Federico's side.
So yeah, I actually really like that play. What he's done kind of smartly there, Juan, is looked at the game and said, okay, well, I'll Trick Room now. I can then apply a bit of pressure. I'll airstream in the Trick Room, and because of that Trick Room, I think that forced Federico to play the game a little differently. Switching out the Urshifu, for example, knowing that it could easily be like double targeted and knocked out. But then after he's got a couple boosts, 2 of the 3 of his Dynamax turns, before the Trick Room becomes advantageous for Federico, and he's now the quickest thing on the field, again, he can just say, well, you know what? I'll reverse my own Trick Room. I only wanted it for 2 or 3 turns. And then I'll play out the rest of the game with the speed boost. So this could be really, really interesting. I'll be curious to see how, Juan is able to keep that kind of control up during the game. He doesn't have the same offensive power pairing he had last game with speed boosts on both and a nasty plot boost as well. But he definitely has the speed advantage now and should be able to take advantage of that.
Well, the other thing to note here is that Federico's Glastrier is actually not holding the weakness policy because Colossal is. So Glastrier is actually holding Life Orb. That means that even taking a super effective attack coming in from something like the Landorus, I'm not going to actually see that weakness policy get procced like we normally would on other types and other sets of Glastrier.
Yeah, it's interesting to see some different kind of builds on the Glastrier, and people are still figuring out the most optimal way to play it, right? So this is definitely one of those things that people are still learning about. I like that the Landorus decided to fly there and get out the way of a potential Icicle Crash, but in the same vein, I like the Rotom coming in and taking that a lot better than the Cresselia would.
Yeah, the Rotom not going to be taking that for super effective damage. Not very effective at all. But this is a really good opportunity now for Federico to just say, hey, I know exactly when your Landorus is going to come back down from the fly. So I've got something ready and waiting for you.
Yeah, a nice little treat for when it returns to the field and is able to be targeted. Could be really problematic and swing kind of the momentum if he doesn't get a knockout here that he really, really needs. You're not going to get a knockout on the Urshifu. Focus Sash keeps it around.
Yeah, so Focus Sash going to be able to allow Urshifu to fire off one of those attacks, which is going to be that Surging Strikes. As we did see Juan go ahead and remove that Rotom from the field, so it is going to be Cresselia taking it, and Cresselia takes that a lot better than what Rotom would have.
Most certainly, and a very nice switch, very defensively minded, but also very good at kind of keeping things in order. Icicle Crash towards the Landorus doesn't hit. It is such a huge damage attack, but there is the drawback laid out for all to see, and it's not going to get what it needs, which is a knockout on the Landorus this turn. So certainly really disappointing turn there for the Glastrier and Federico, as Juan gets away with that fly scot-free.
Oh no, that's such a big miss. That could have been a difference maker, a huge difference maker there for Federico and his game plan, but that miss means that Landorus is going to be around on the field for longer, and this time we'll be able to, either fly again and get out of the way of danger, or be able to go after this Urshifu. This is going to be really, really tough for Federico to come back from.
This Glastrier is going to have to land an Icicle Crash very, very soon, and that's something that is going to be made hard for it by this not only Landorus ability to fly, but able to switch positions with the combination, with the ally switch there. This Earthquake may just be that little bit of extra damage he needs, trying to pick off both the Urshifu and the Glastrier in one turn. A little bit greedy, especially when the Urshifu protects, but the Icicle Crash doesn't look like it's going to cause a problem this time.
No, not going to miss. But But because of that ally switch, it means that Cresselia is going to take that Icicle Crash instead of Landorus. So again, Juan just playing around this Glastrier super effectively. And we're going to have to see some switches come in from Federico because this Urshifu, it's not really doing the work that Federico was hoping it would.
No, it's landed a Surging Strikes that wasn't very effective. It's not really getting the amount of damage down that it can do. And it's interesting to see, you know, it's not like it's got protects to be kind of breaking through here. Juan, even though his team is slightly more defensive-minded, has been able to just keep up that pressure. And the ally switch from Cresselia has been really important in both games 2 and 3, where Juan finds himself in a really good position. So I'll be curious to see if he can keep that up. And another option for Cresselia to help out its partner right there for all to see.
Yeah, the helping hand coming in from Cresselia just to be able to boost up this earthquake damage that Kartana's going to be taking on the switch in here. And that's enough damage to knock out Glastrier. So Glastrier is not going to be able to fire back a super effective attack onto this Landorus.
And this is where the game gets really kind of one-sided, right? We saw those 2 boosts from Max Airstream put in play very, very early. They're still in play, and you've got a 1 health Urshifu, a 37 on Kartana, just super, super low. You got Helping Hand Earthquakes just able to close out the game. Like, even if you try and protect stuff, you know, whatever isn't protected every single turn is just going to take big damage. And yes, the Kartana is going to be able to Dynamax. It's something that Federico's been holding on to, but he may have been holding on to it for just a fraction too long.
I think that's something that I really love about Juan's team in general is just so much synergy between the Landorus and the Earthquakes, as well as the abilities on Cresselia and Rotom, just to continuously pump out huge amounts of damage with that Earthquake, and just all the support that Cresselia is able to provide with the Ally Switch and the Helping Hand. Really, really great synergy from Juan's team here.
Cresselia's been putting in a shift in game number 3. It did so much. It set the Trick Room, reversed the Trick Room, kept Landorus safe for a couple turns, and made sure that Landorus, you know, wasn't just not getting hit, but was also dealing enough damage to pick up knockouts when the Pokemon that was threatening it was looking at right there. Urshifu, though, is going to at least get a chance to move, and Landorus not able to do anything about that one. Aqua Jet just taking it down very easily.
Ooh, that leaves Kartana to go for the max overgrowth here, and Cresselia doesn't have too much health left, so this is going to be a knockout there for the Kartana and a beast boost for it as well.
Yeah, this actually changed very, very quickly. The Aqua Jet showing from the... I mean, obviously all Urshifu have Aqua Jet, and being able to make sure that lands very wise, but no ally switch. Like, an ally switch there would have been so different. If the ally switch had made sure that the Landorus was able to move, then this game could have been very much in Juan's hands. But he's now down to his last 2 Pokemon against 2 very offensive threats from Federico, and that's going to be really key for him to try and win this game. A lot riding on, I think, this Kartana. It's got its control of the terrain, though, and you know, you're next to the Urshifu, it deals with the Rotom quite comfortably.
Right, well, Tapu Fini coming in is going to be able to change that terrain just a little bit here, but Kartana, with that max overgrowth, is still pressuring down that Tapu Fini so much. And Federico's real only choice here is to try to go for super effective attacks into both Tapu Fini and Rotom and hope that he's fast enough and he's going to be able to get those knockouts. So Kartana does have that Beast Boost activated. Let's see if this max overgrowth is going to be enough, and it is! Tapu Fini gets 1 hit knocked out right then and there.
Yeah, that Tapu Fini was saved for late, hoping it could maybe wrap up the game against something like the Urshifu, but wasn't able to get there, and Tapu Fini not even afforded a move in this game. That does leave, of course, just this Rotom to try and fight back against Urshifu, and it's going to be a tough one, especially when it has to take a Surging Strikes first for its troubles. So Rotom, ooh, look at that.
Wow.
It's just, yeah, no, not a chance. As Rotom is fouled and Federico pulls this game back from what looked like a very treacherous position. Juan wasn't able to keep his Landorus safe for a single turn out of the whole game, and that was the turn that cost him the game overall.